Gary Droze, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Abigail.
It's so great. You're in my realm now. Usually we're out at the track and you're the one calling all the shots
so
towards
now you're in control. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know. Payback. No. Quick background on you. You trained in Colorado. You were part of the military team.
I was at the Air Force Academy.
Yep.
And I just kind of fell into that team. I ran some in high school, and I was an okay athlete. And then I just started running some on my own at the Air Force Academy. And then one summer, I hopped in a road race, and I didn't realize it, but the Academy cross-country team was using it for their time trial. And I had an Air Force Academy T-shirt on, and I managed to beat half the team. And so the team captain came up and said, "Why aren't you on the team?" And there you have it.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
that's how the story went?
Otherwise, all I would have done is fishing. So, yeah.
Which I have tried your fish dip. It is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It is so good. So he's both a talented fisherman and also talented at making fish dip and a great coach. Because you also trained McClay High School and middle school?
Well, our school is a K through 12, and so we lump them all in together.
You lump them. Okay, so you were both, but you brought home 26 state championships?
20 state championships.
Amazing.
And we just don't count the region and district things.
But that was in the 50s for districts and regionals?
Yeah, we had 57 individual state champions.
That's amazing.
Bunch of good kids, bunch of good parents. So.
And now you're working with us Low Lifes at Gulf Winds and TCC.
No, well, I started the programs at TCC back when it was still called TCC, and then a new AD came in, and his thing was not track and cross country, and he cut most of the programs. So I hopped over to FSU, and FSU is so competitive. There's a lot of high school kids who would have been Division I at any other school, and they couldn't run at FSU. So 2 years ago, FSU started a club team, and so I'm the club team coach.
Yep. How do you like it over there?
It's fantastic because, you can kind of cotton to this. You're your own boss when you're doing your job.
Yes.
At FSU, I have no bosses. I just run the program however I want. I don't have to answer to anybody.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. And I've ran with a couple of the club
yes,
kids.
They come out to practices.
Yeah, they've come out, and they're great training partners to run with because they test me like.
Yeah. And plus, these are all kids who are at FSU for academics, and they're running because they want to run. It's not a job.
Yeah.
So they're doing
I find
it for love.
that, you get more out of the athletes in some regard that way because they're better to work with because they want to be there.
Yeah, they're there not because they have to be there.
They're not like, I'm on scholarship and I hate you.
Exactly.
And I hate this.
Yep.
So today I wanted to talk about all things like running enhancement.
Okay.
What kind of technologies, supplements, gear people are using now. There's so much out there in the running space in terms of how to get faster, how to recover better, how to just be a better athlete. And I have some things on a list, and then obviously I want you to sort of guide the conversation in terms of topics you want to talk about. But you've done some research. You've also you've been in the running space for so long. So you know what sort of stood the test of time, what has not, what's morphed into some weird beast of a what the heck is this, So are there any things off the bat that come to mind when it comes to what things people are using that are worth your time, not worth your time?
The first thing that I would advise, and this is regardless of what the supposed performance enhancement product is go into it with some healthy skepticism because, face it, a lot of these products, they're designed by people who are trying to make money.
Right.
So for me, as much as possible, I like to see if something has stood the test of peer-reviewed research.
Yep.
So, and that's why I was lucky at FSU. My graduate research was all in sports-related, activities and recoveries and things like that. So, to me, if somebody just makes a claim about a product, I'm gonna be skeptical.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, the other thing too is that with a lot of these items, they are not going to have the same impact or effect for each person. And we'll get into that more when I talk about the super shoes. So that so I would avoid the notion of saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this because I know this great athlete who's doing it." It's not necessarily going to work for everybody else.
Yeah, athletes that are wearing super shoes run a lot faster than you.
Yeah.
And so it's going to change.
They're going to be faster anyway. A lot of them.
It's going to change the effect that the super shoe has. But Okay, so first one that I'm thinking of that's just all across the board in the fitness space is creatine.
Okay.
Creatine monohydrate.
Okay.
I hear the biggest thing with runners, do I want to use it all the time? Is it something I even want to include? Is it just for lifters? Is it something that, you know, a couple weeks out from a race, should I stop taking it so I can drop some water weight so I can be lighter for my run? That's kind of the biggest thing I hear about creatine.
I'm glad you brought up the creatine monohydrate because it's one of those substances that has seen lots and lots of study.
Yes.
And actually, if you go way back to the first study, and this goes back to how I say you should be skeptical about, an item. The first study that showed this amazing results for creatine, all the subjects were vegetarians. Well, creatine naturally occurs in animal flesh. So what they did was they took a group of people who were right off the bat deficient in creatine. So they were going to see improvements, in performance.
Absolutely.
So then after that, somebody brought that up, and then the folks doing the study said, okay, well, let's, they owned up to it and said, okay, let's do it. So then beyond that, probably the single biggest comment I can make about the creatine is that the performance benefits, they are real, but they're very specific. And what I'm really saying here is there's not much use for an endurance athlete, especially a longer distance athlete, say a marathoner, to use creatine. It's just, that's not where it's going to help you. There are other substances that would help more than creatine. Creatine seems to get the most benefit in terms of like runner type athletes. It's for sprinters or anyone who's going to be engaged in high intensity efforts that are going to put you in the anaerobic realm.
Yep.
Okay. So that's basically, you're talking about fast twitch fibers.
Yep.
Okay.
It's utilizing the phosphocreatine system. So essentially, for those who don't know, it's this energy system that's used either when you're really picking up speed during activity and you need to get this very quick usage of energy, or at the onset of exercise during a heavy lift or a very, very intense bout of exercise like a sprint.
Right.
So,
and the actual best benefits that were found with the creatine didn't have to do with, and we'll get back to like runners and also cyclists. Cyclists and runners are the ones who've been mostly tested on this. What they found was that the creatine supplementation didn't necessarily make them faster. What it did was kept them from slowing down.
Yeah.
So the folks that were taking the creatine, what they found out was like the most ideal circumstance was something like repeated sprints like you'd see in a bike race, where they have these criterium races where every lap they sprint for a prize, a prix.
Yeah.
And what they found there was the athletes who were in a simulated criterium race on a bike, when they had to do repeated sprints, their last sprints were just as fast as their first sprints. So their first sprints weren't necessarily faster than they'd ever done before, but they didn't slow down.
Interesting.
So they
it's
were
almost like sustained power.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I've also seen a lot in the space recently coming out, and this goes, I suppose, away from the endurance realm, but not really, that it helps with overall deterrence of brain fog and cognitive function. It helps with people who are of older age, too, with the decline where you have things like Alzheimer's and dementia. Okay. So I'm curious, and that I don't know. This is newer research that's coming out, so I don't know if it will stand the test of time. But that would be curious for people who are doing really long ultra endurance races when they're experiencing things like brain fog or the crazy backyard ultras where you're sleep deprived.
Right.
I'm curious to see if that has any kind of help or not.
Okay. Yep. I can't go there. I'm not familiar with that. So, but you have me interested
caffeine,
now.
which is the next one that I want to talk to you about, which is caffeine.
Caffeine
Supplementation.
Okay. Well, if you want to go into caffeine,
I feel like you're biased because you were in the military.
How's that?
I feel like you would be biased toward caffeine.
Actually, I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
Are you freaking serious?
Not kidding. When I was a little kid, after church,
all of my friends in the military, they're like, give me another energy drink.
No, it just started as a child. It's a silly thing. We'd go to church, then after church, all the adults would go and drink coffee. I'm like, well, that's what old people do. So
I never associated myself.
Now, I'm not saying that I don't do caffeine. I definitely do caffeine. I'm in that realm. You probably already know this, but everybody has one of three genetic predispositions towards caffeine. You're either caffeine naive, or you're resistant to caffeine, or most 50% of the population just has kind of a standard response to caffeine.
Yep.
Personally, I'm caffeine naive, so a little bit of caffeine goes a long way with me.
Really?
Yeah. So now, Where caffeine, we found in the research, is different from, say, creatine, is there's been research that demonstrates that caffeine can be effective in performance enhancement in sprints, middle distance, everything, because the benefits have to do with different energy systems. In my case, as a marathoner, what I took advantage of was its potential to spare glycogen. So with caffeine, glycogen is the optimal fuel. That's what we want to use, but we only possess so much of it. That's why people hit the wall in the marathon.
Yes.
Well, for highly trained endurance athletes, it turns out that caffeine can stimulate fat metabolism a little bit more quickly than if they didn't use it. So if you're out running a long race, we have almost limitless stores for fat.
Yeah.
So the caffeine would actually help to spare that precious glycogen by burning fat at a racing level that normally you'd be accessing your glycogen. So that's the advantage.
And that would be more
athletes.
later in a race as well.
Yeah. And I actually used that. I never really got enough mileage in to really properly train for a marathon. So I would actually take caffeine pills, and I'd take some just before the race, and I take some halfway through the race.
I just want to see a Coach Gary on some caffeine then, because if you're caffeine naive and you're running the amount of pickup you probably got in that run.
It drives Vicky crazy. I don't really race anymore. I've got knee issues, but I would take the cheapest equivalent. By the way, here's how to save some money. 5 Hour Energy, that's what a lot of people take.
Yes.
The stuff you get at Walmart, that is some generic brand. I forget what it's called. It's something energy.
Battery
exactly
acid?
The same thing for about 1/4 the price. And I can tell you, I've used both. It's the same amount of caffeine. And they'll say, we have these proprietary substances in it. BS, it's caffeine. Caffeine is what is going to get you through.
Wow.
And but I'll take that before a race, and Vicky just can't stand to be near me. On the way to the race, I'm like going bonkers and stuff. So
twitching.
Yeah. So which also speaks to the fact that not everybody has the same sensitivity to caffeine. Now, with regard to runners, and it might be with other events too, the latest research on caffeine shows that possibly for optimal performance, you want to kind of deprive yourself of caffeine, or at least have caffeine at a little bit lower intake for 2 to 7 days before whatever big event you want to do. And that kind of makes sense.
Yep.
It's like you want your receptors to be ready to grab that caffeine.
And when you're training intra-workout with something like a caffeine tablet, or if it's in a gel or whatever, or you are just doing some kind of 5 Hour Energy shot situation, how would you start, in your experience, implementing that into your training? How far out would you experiment with that? Or would you just say, let's try it on race day?
Yeah.
Most people who try things on race day, I feel like regret it later. But
yeah, because that's one thing about caffeine. You're taking money out of the bank, and then you have to pay it back.
Yep.
So personally, I would only use caffeine when I was racing.
Okay.
I still I'll drink diet sodas and stuff, but not like I don't go overboard with it. Vicky, my wife, uses it every time she's doing an intense workout.
Okay.
So before intervals, she would do that. Hard tempo run, she would do caffeine.
Yep.
So that's, there's an argument for that. It makes sense if you're trying to get the most out of it. I wouldn't do it when I was doing the hard workouts, because I felt like my body's going to be subjected to this intensity anyway. During the workout itself, I'd like to hit certain times maybe, but that doesn't matter as much as getting a training effect. So I'm going to get the training effect whether I have the caffeine or not, as opposed to a race. In a race, I want to run as fast as I can.
Right.
So depends
Very
on the person.
Very interesting point.
Depends on the person.
So in the training for you, it's about, let's get the effect that we need from the session. If it hits the time or it doesn't hit the time, that just gives me information.
Yes.
Whereas in the race, it's like, no, I want to hit the time.
Yeah, I want on a race day, that's where with intervals, I wouldn't be wearing super shoes on the interval days.
Yep.
I would still wear light shoes, but it's like I don't care exactly how fast I run. I just want to get training in. So.
Speaking of super shoes.
Nice segue.
Look
Here
at
we
you.
go.
You're like a podcaster, okay. Gary. You're setting it up beautifully.
This is nice. So here's the deal. My last few years at McClay School, I had an exercise physiology lab. And that was about the time that super shoes started coming out, the Nike Vaporflies.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm a cheapskate, so I'm like, how can I work this to my monetary advantage? I got the school to fund a few pairs of super shoes. This is when they were all $250 no matter what.
Yes.
So the school bought me, I just so happened to request size 8.5, which is what I wear. And I said, I'm going to do research on these super shoes.
Yeah.
Well, I had a treadmill in my lab, and I couldn't exactly duplicate what some of the studies had done, where they actually did time trials. But what I could do is use our treadmill, and I would set a pace that would be like a hard tempo effort for me. So I would do this, and it was basically 6-minute miles for 30 minutes. It's like 5 miles at 6-minute mile pace, which for me at the time was a strong tempo effort.
Yep.
Not race, but it was absolutely intense.
Yep.
So, and I would do a few bouts with that. I did 2 bouts with the super shoes, 2 bouts with regular racing flats.
Okay.
So still light shoes, but not with the carbon plates in them.
That's how we're defining super shoes.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. The super shoes, by definition, they're going to be light, but racing flats are light anyway.
Yep.
So the difference is going to be that they have a combination of the carbon plate and the foam that is complementary to the carbon plate in that it can give you a springing effect.
Yes.
And that's the whole appeal of the shoes, or the whole benefit from them, is if you take your normal stride length, it's going to add anywhere from 1 inch to maybe 1.5 inches to each stride. And since velocity is a product of your stride length and your stride frequency, if you have the same stride frequency and you're putting the same effort in, and all of a sudden your stride is 1.5 inches longer.
Velocity.
I'll jump ahead. The math is real quick on this. You get somewhere like 40 to 50 meters extra out of each mile. And that, for me, that parlayed right into, for a 5K, I'd run, my 5Ks were always about 24 to 30 seconds faster in the super shoes.
Okay, so and when you did the tests.
Oh, okay. The test itself, I wasn't running at race pace, but I was running at a hard tempo effort, and we had really good heart rate monitors, and my kids tracked my heart rate the whole time.
Did you separate these by days with the shoes?
Yeah, I'd alternate. I had 2 bouts with the super shoes,
cool.
2 bouts without. So
both you came in, recovered, it was fresh session.
And because it was indoors, there were no temperature effects, no
Nice.
wind or anything like that.
Cool.
So I was able to control the conditions pretty well.
Yeah.
And even my resting heart rate was the same for each of them before
Nice.
I started. So I made sure I was at the same level.
Nice.
And what I found was I had an average of heart rate about 8 beats lower with the super shoes on at my tempo pace.
Wow.
And given that we know that aerobic performance is a combination of your heart rate, your stroke volume, and a couple other things.
Yes.
If you can be running at a certain pace and your heart rate's 8 or 10 beats lower,
that's amazing.
that means you can go to a higher pace.
Yeah.
And so basically, here's the caveat. Remember I said way at the beginning here, these products or supplements or whatever depend on the person.
Yes.
If you're a heel striker, you're wasting your money.
Yep.
Okay. The shoes, they're designed to give you extra spring in your step. So if you don't hit either flat foot or slightly forefoot, in other words, if you don't have an aggressive stride to start with, the shoes are not going to give you any spring. They'll just pop you up in the air a little bit.
And that's why I also feel the people who are beginner runners, people who are not necessarily they're not necessarily fast runners either. Mm-hmm. I think that also hinders them. You don't get as much out of the super shoes because there's a certain speed you have to hit before. I feel like even me, when I'm doing my track sessions, if I'm in my meta speeds, I feel like I can get the pop out of the shoe really well.
Yeah.
If I were to try to do a long run in those, it would honestly hurt me more than it would help me. It would feel awkward, clunky. You would not get what you want out of the shoe at all.
Yep.
So there's a certain speed I think you need to reach in order to get the benefit from the shoe in and of itself. And most people, like people who I see walking around in super shoes or going on a jog in a super shoe, I just am like, what? That you must have money to burn.
Yeah.
And also, like, your foot is probably going to feel like crap later too. Because I think that honestly, the super shoe, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, if you're not using them the right way, I feel like it can mess you up worse.
Might be. My main point on that with the super shoes is that, remember, you've got the carbon fiber plate and that specialized foam. Well, that specialized foam does not have a big longevity. So why waste time, pounding the heels on your super shoes, beating them down, these expensive shoes, when you might as well just put on your clunker shoes anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Put on the clunkers. Put on the clunkers, guys. Yeah. What do we think on that note? Because the Vaporflies which ones got banned? The Alpha Flies got banned.
I can't remember the exact one that got banned, but I think part of it had to do with the drop on the heels. At least one of the shoes is banned just because of the heel drop. So I don't know what the latest is on the ban.
What are your thoughts on that concept, though, the technological doping?
A very gray area. Very gray area. So
it's curious because I would, my natural thought is, really, guys? And then also, what technology will come out in the future where it's like, this is the equivalent to technological doping. I would say that a super shoe, I'm not necessarily convinced, you know? It's not giving you like magical speed.
And this is a very subjective question that you asked, so I'll give my opinion then.
Yeah, this is not a research based.
This is just one person's opinion. The two, to me, the two red areas would be accessibility and potential for harm to your body. So for accessibility, what I mean is this something where the only way you're going to get a hold of this substance or this product is if you are down a dark alley somewhere, or you have unlimited government funding.
You know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Or you're like, so some of these international teams, they are sponsored by their governments. The U.S. team is not, So, so if you have unlimited financing, then they can afford to do this stuff. Then the other thing is harm to the body, and that's where something like blood doping would come in.
Yep.
Or EPO.
Super effective, and also you could die.
And EPO is naturally occurring substance. We do make EPO, but if you clog your blood with EPO, it's going to be sluggish, and if it's a hot day, you could die. And then we don't even have to go into the steroid issues because there's obviously so much potential harm from overuse of that.
Yeah, in terms of supplements, we're not going to go into things that are not legal.
Let's try to avoid that.
They obviously have their benefits because people will do illegal things to go get them.
Oh, sure, yeah. In fact, it was years ago, there was an interview of these aspiring Olympians, and they did all kinds of surveys on them, psychological surveys.
Yeah.
And one of the questions near the end, just for grins, they asked, if you were guaranteed to win a gold medal, but you were going to die within 4 years, would you do it? And a substantial portion, something like 25%, said, "Oh yeah, it's worth it."
Yeah.
Well, then it's not a big stretch to say, "Well, would you take these drugs?"
Yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah.
But speaking of EPO and heat and things like that, I do want to get into heat training because we're doing that, whether intentionally or unintentionally, in Florida in the summer. The heat training is real. But with that comes the heat suits. So I think the old school method was just like put on a bunch of sweats and run on the treadmill or run outside and figure it out. How do you feel about heat training and then finding just hot places to go run versus deliberately buying a heat suit or trying to invest in equipment to mimic that hot environment?
Yeah. It's
is it worth it?
For me it almost becomes a moot point in a place like Florida because especially with the humidity here.
Yeah,
you don't really need that much heat, say compared to a place like the Southwest, maybe Arizona or New Mexico. You're going to get the heat stress effects just because you can't evaporate your sweat as well here. So it's not
just go outside.
Sort of unnecessary here.
Yeah,
and I'm not. I guess in part I'm not really a big fan of it just because the climate's getting warmer. We're gonna have it's gonna be hotter most days anyway.
Yeah.
So, but just in terms of the efficacy of heat training, the best argument to try to pursue it is if you know you're going to be competing in a hot environment. So that'd be my only suggestion for it. Is like if you know you're going to compete in the heat, then you have to adjust to it.
Right, because there's a certain level of heat adaptation that you want to. Yeah,
exactly. And the adaptation is very specific. There's plenty of studies that have shown that what happens when you do heat training, as long as you recover from it okay, there was a study that measured the density of sweat pores, and you actually increase the number of sweat pores per square inch on your body, when you're subject to the heat. And this is something that occurs over time. But again, I personally, especially because my realm is mostly distance running, your core temperature is going to elevate on even an average day anyway. So it's to the extent that you start layering up to do the heat training, it's going to negatively affect your performance. So to me, it's not worth the trade-off to say, oh, let me be hotter and hotter here, and then I can hardly get through a workout.
Yeah.
So
that's where I'm curious, because I see people who will go out and they'll do maybe not their main quality sessions, but they'll do their easy miles and they'll wait to the hottest part of the day to go out and run, to, in quote, heat train. They don't necessarily have a race coming up that's in the heat.
Yeah.
It makes to me, it doesn't make sense. It's like, if I'm going to heat train, it's because I'm going out to train in the heat in a race later.
Yes.
And some people just, their argument is, well, I'm going to go potentially hurt a couple of sessions to heat train because the heat training is just going to make my overall training better in the long run.
Yeah. I have a little problem with that because there's also plenty of documentation for folks that go overboard with it. They overstep it, and they go from just heat stress to heat exhaustion, and of course the next ones are going to be heat stroke and all.
Yeah.
But even the folks that don't get to the level where they encounter heat stroke, if they have high levels of heat exhaustion, it turns out that they become more susceptible to heat issues later. So what I'm saying is that if you're not careful with it, you don't build up a tolerance to the heat.
The heat is just hot.
Now, exactly.
I can tell you, I've been training in the heat for 3 months now, and I don't feel like I've gotten any better at it.
Yeah. Now, certainly over time, proper heat training is going to increase blood volume and increase, density of sweat pores and all that. But that you only get to a certain level with that. Your blood volume can only go up to a certain amount. There's a limit there. You can only have so many sweat glands. So to me, especially those of us who spend a lot of time involuntarily in the heat, because that's what it is here. You don't really, it's overkill to try to get more heat training than you've already had just by being an athlete.
For people that are in colder temperatures, is it something that you'd recommend if they don't have a hot race that they're training for? Or would you just say, man, just get more out of your quality sessions and let's just work harder, and you're going to get the increase, you're going to get the physiological benefits from training better.
Actually, training, long distance training is heat training almost by definition, unless it's a really cold day. You're, like I said, you're elevating your core temperature and stuff. We're about to do a little segue here if you want to. You just said something about just getting the stress of the training. You mentioned earlier on something about maybe talking about the masks or altitude training or stuff like that.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it, Mr. Colorado.
Okay. First off, with regard to altitude training, I had involuntary altitude training when I was at the Air Force Academy.
Dude, you've had involuntary heat training, altitude training. You've never had normal training your whole life. So made him such a great runner.
Yeah. Well,
this is it, you guys.
Yeah, or whacked me out.
Everything he says is lying. He's just trying to keep all of you guys in the cold, flat climates.
Messing with you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I became really interested in altitude training in part because I was on a college team at 7,000 feet, and the funny thing is, I didn't start seriously training, as a distance runner until I was in Colorado. So I didn't know anything but altitude training. I didn't have anything to compare it to when I first started running seriously.
Fascinating.
So, so it was funny to me. I didn't realize until I went down to sea level to run in some races, how easy it was, to run faster. But having said that, it sounds like I'm setting you up to say, oh yeah, altitude training is this amazing thing.
Yes.
Well, it turns out, sorry to say this, altitude training is great if you're going to compete at altitude.
Yeah.
Okay. Altitude training does not really show a lot of benefits of ultimate performance improvement. And again, I'm speaking for distance runners.
Yep.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that if you're a distance runner and you train at altitude.
Define distance runner. For me, please.
Let's put it this way. Let's say your main event would be, say, 5K and up.
Okay.
Right. The mile, a lot of people would consider the mile to be, a distance race, but the true serious athletes.
It feels short and fast to me now.
In terms of fast twitch to slow twitch fibers and energy systems and all that, the mile, the 800 to the mile is almost in the middle. But once you get past the mile, really 2 miles is it. Once you get to 2 miles, then you can say, okay, this is a distance event.
Yep.
So what the research found was that for people, when you're subject to altitude, you're going to have, you're going to increase blood volume, will increase your EPO production, stuff like that. So yes, those things do occur, but they don't necessarily immediately correspond to improved performance in distance races at sea level. What they do is give you an advantage over sea level people who come to compete against you at altitude.
Interesting.
Okay.
So when you were saying you felt easier runs at sea level.
Sure. Well, and this is because I'll just do this as an example. Let's say I was going to go out in Colorado and do a hard run. I might run 6-minute mile pace, and that'd be like, oh, that's going to be my tough run, long run with the guys on the team. Okay. If I were to do the same thing down at sea level, I could probably run 5:45 pace and it would feel the same way.
Okay.
So in that sense, okay, that's good. It makes it feel better. But when you get down to where it's like, now we're racing, now we're going like as fast as we can possibly run. Okay. Am I going to run a whole bunch faster at sea level because I trained at altitude?
Right.
No. So that's why the latest, over the years, what happened was people would try these altitude chambers, or they'd go up to these altitude training camps and all this stuff.
Yes.
It'd be like, let's expose ourselves to altitude and all this stuff. Well, it turns out if you're out there doing, because you've done our intervals now. Yep. Let's say you're out on the track at 7,000 feet and you're like, I'm going to do these mile repeats. You can't do them very fast.
No.
Compared to if you did them at sea level, you would run those mile repeats faster. So it turns out the best way to take advantage of what altitude can bring you in terms of your body's adaptations to it is, you've probably already heard this, it's live high, train low.
Yep.
So, for example, Lake Tahoe area, you could be up in the mountains and you could sleep up there and then drive down the mountain and train at sea level. That's the optimal, because that the 18 plus hours a day that you're not training, you're exposing your body, even though it's at rest, you're exposing yourself to altitude. And your body is going to have adaptations at altitude whether you're training or not. So
fascinating.
So the live high, train
still
low
get the quality,
says,
so your RP is lower overall, and you can go faster at sea level or just a lower altitude in general.
Yep.
And then live, if you can, in that higher altitude, so that you're not potentially getting less out of your training sessions.
Yes, that's the ideal way to do it. And then if I'm talking distance runners, for sprinters, it doesn't make any difference. You're not doing endurance work. The physiological adjustments to altitude don't have anything to do with your fast twitch fibers. So.
Do you think that there are some people that are just more genetically predisposed to handling altitude? Because I did a Spartan race in Utah, and we started at 6 and we went up to probably like 11,500 and then back down. And I was fine. I didn't get nauseous. I was okay. I mean, we were there a few days prior, so I had a little bit of adjustment, but I was okay. I ended up winning my age group for that Spartan race. It was very cool.
Okay.
My friends were dying.
Yeah.
I mean, throwing up, like absolutely miserable. And I'm sure some of it could have to do with nutrition and things like that, hydration status and that, and things of that nature. But I was okay. And I mean, people who were hiking up with me were like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from Florida." And they're like, "What's wrong with you?" So,
well, Abigail, I'm going to generalize a little bit.
Okay.
But this is my overall response to what you're asking. It turns out that the physiological benefits of altitude training, they look like you've just been doing a lot of training. What I'm really saying is, if you're really, really fit, you're gonna be better at altitude anyway.
Right.
And now there's going to be some individual variations. For example, we all produce enzymes that are associated with metabolism at different energy systems.
Yeah.
Some of the genetic differences is some people just naturally produce more enzymes that have to do with, for example, aerobic metabolism. That's the genetic part. Okay. Some people naturally have higher hemoglobin levels than other people. Okay, even if they haven't trained. So if we were to do all kinds of blood tests and stuff on you, we might find, Abigail's producing, these good enzymes that are associated with, with performance.
Yeah.
Just
it's not helping me in the mile right now. It's not helping me in the mile right now.
You're gonna do fine. Ooh, remind me about that mile thing when we talk more about supplements.
Okay.
So anyway, I went too long on this, but what I would say is for the altitude training, it really only applies, like if you're really serious about it, it's really going to only apply if you expect to be competing at altitude. Now, if you don't have a chance to train at altitude, but your race is at altitude, if you have an opportunity when you're traveling, the single best thing to do is to travel right before your race. Now I'm throwing out the notion of jet lag and stuff because the worst thing is to get there about 2 days beforehand.
That's exactly what I did.
Okay. Actually the best thing is 3 weeks.
Right.
The worst thing is 3 days, and the next best thing is right before. And here's why. When you're exposed to altitude, you start to have all kinds of shifts in your blood volume. There's all, you get dehydrated. there's some negative things that happen on the way to the improvements.
Yes.
Those negative impacts typically peak about 2 days after you've been exposed to altitude.
That's so interesting. So, yeah, because when I got there, I mean, I was sleeping, and my resting heart rate is usually 40s.
Yeah.
And I woke up and my metrics, my watch at the time, because I didn't have my ring, was like, you're dying, because my resting heart rate was probably 80 beats per minute.
Yeah.
I mean, significantly higher.
So, well, what your body was doing is responding to the fact that air pressure is lower. And that's the whole thing about why things are so tough at altitude.
Yeah.
There's nothing special about the air. It's just the air pressure is lower.
Yep.
And so you cannot draw as much oxygen in your body, with regular ventilation. So that's why people hyperventilate at altitude. So anyway, all these things that your body is trying to do to adjust to the altitude, eventually they'll help you. That's why I said that the best thing is 3 weeks. It takes about 10 days before you start to really get, adaptations to altitude.
Otherwise, just go right into it.
Otherwise, you want to go right beforehand before you're laid out flat from it.
That is crazy.
So there you go.
Okay. I want to go into watches, people being kind of slaves to the watch.
Yep.
And I think that could go into a little bit of our interval training, our mile training and stuff, which I know you want to talk about a little bit more. So what are your thoughts on wearing a watch all the time, being a slave to the watch?
Okay.
What's going on there? Because with mile training, I mean, times matter, right? But there's also times when, you've informed Danny and Danny's informed me, like, take the watch off, dude. We're doing RPE.
Okay.
Like, I'm ready.
Okay. This is more subjective stuff. And what I'm going to say, Abigail, is ask people not to hate on me. And also, you can do another podcast with an expert on watches.
Yes.
Because
let's go.
Because here's
I love
the deal.
the controversial opinion.
And what this gets back to is when I was running at the Air Force Academy, and we're getting ready for a big race, and we're all coming up. We finished our warm-ups and all this stuff. The last thing our coach would have us do is take our watch off and hand it to him.
Yes.
And he said, you're always going to lose against the clock. The clock always wins.
Yes.
Okay. You're racing to beat other people. Now, again, that was just our philosophy.
Right.
So that was years and years ago. So since that time, the most I have ever spent on a watch was $14.50. Most of the watches I buy are $11.47 at Walmart. They have a little stopwatch on them.
Yep.
I can take my heart rate, right off my neck.
Yep.
So, and the other end of that spectrum, and this is, I'm actually going to use this to bolster the reason I don't wear a watch.
Okay.
When I was coaching at TCC, one of my good athletes was also working for Verizon.
Yep.
Okay. He kept his cell phone with him, and his cell phone had like some built-in, watch app stuff and all this whatever. Yeah. I had to wrest it away from him before a race. I mean, the guy wants to carry his cell phone during a race.
Oh,
with
wow.
With all the watch apps on.
Oh, wow.
And so, now, having said that, plenty of great athletes, I'm sure, just post all their stuff on their watches. A lot of athletes I train, they bless their little hearts. You know that they say it in the South when you're
bless your heart.
That is like it's a backhand.
Those freaking idiots.
That's an insult. Yeah, bless their little hearts. They're like, let me show you what I've downloaded on my Strava or whatever the stuff is. Like, I don't know what any of that stuff is, but I just smile and go, oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. And I just say, there's a bunch of really amazing athletes who never had more than just a basic watch.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm saying, if it seems to help you, kudos to you. But I like the phrase that you use, slave to your watch. So I'd say that's where it's time to start being concerned, is if all you can do is look at your watch.
And this is twofold, because I think there's a slave to the recovery metrics that the watch has, which is one thing. And then there's also a slave to the times when you're actually running. And it's both. A lot of people, I've seen people change their entire workout because their Oura Ring told them that they had a bad sleep. Yep. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
I'm very much not quite where you are, Gary, but I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, I love Strava. I think it's fun, whatever. But also, I don't wear my watch unless I am running.
Yeah.
And there are times when I have used the don't look at your watch technique.
Yeah.
I have had some of my best runs, like where I will literally, because I don't trust myself to not look at my watch when I'm running, but I still wanted to record the data that I can look at later. And I'll do the 2 mile cut down.
Yeah.
And I will literally set a 1 mile interval and a 1 mile interval twice. When the interval's going, you can't see anything other than the distance going down. You can't see your heart rate. You can't see your pace. You can't see anything. And it's awesome because I have to purely go on feel. I start hard. I finish harder. And I get to see, okay, did I actually cut down? Did I actually do what I needed to do? And I get to see it afterwards. And I've hit times that I never thought I would hit. I think my last cut down, I hit a 6:03 and a 5:56 on the 2 mile cut down, which would have been, if I had seen my watch and I would have looked at it and I saw my pace, I would have freaked out. And I probably would have slowed up and I wouldn't have gotten as much out of the session as I could have. So there's both slave to the recovery metrics, which is like, that's, you know, a whole nother conversation of like, you guys, sleep is sleep and sometimes it's going to be there and sometimes it's not, whatever, you know. But then there's also, during a training session, how do you feel about people constantly looking at their times, constantly looking at versus relying a little bit more on RPE and like, hey, this is just what I'm feeling and this is how the session is going? Yeah.
Those are really good points. And I think, personally, I think it depends on where you are in your training and what you're trying to get out of the session.
Yes.
That's kind of like my overarching comment on this whole thing. My $11 watches, I used them constantly when I was doing intervals, but only because I had, over time, I developed a sense of like what my body was doing, how it felt. That's why I'm always asking people on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your effort level?
Yes.
I really feel like you get more out of it when you are monitoring your body and taking ownership of how you feel. Now, having said that, once you're at a certain level, once you're like, okay, I'm hammering and I have a specific time goal. Like, you know, when I was trying to run a certain time for 5K, and it's like, okay, I know I'm in pretty good shape. You know, I've done runs by feel and stuff like this. Now I'm trying to break a 14:30 5K. That means my butt has to be getting around the track at faster than that pace. So, and in those cases, I'd use my watch, and if I couldn't hit the times, then I'd be like, well, I have to change the workout or do something else because the goal of that workout was to run a certain time.
Yeah.
So if the goal of the workout is you have to hit these times, then yeah, you need the watch to show you. But you can get a lot of work done without knowing exactly what your times are. So it depends on the session.
Yeah. Those threshold runs, like a long run or the, to me, threshold also is kind of like so set up well for an RPE session.
I totally agree.
To me, threshold is RPE.
Yes.
It is truly like, where do you feel you're hitting threshold?
Yep.
Is this an uncomfortable, sustained pace?
And your body will tell you.
Your body will
because you will start to slow down. You're okay, I'm past my threshold.
I'm past threshold. Yeah, you'll feel the lactate building, and you're like, things are not clearing as well as they should anymore. I need to slow up. Like, I have to slow up. And so I also think, again, if you're a slave to your watch, you don't really ever get to experience running in your body the way that, like, which is what's so awesome about running.
Yeah.
Like, the feeling when you're just in flow in a workout, even in the suffering of it, like when you're in that state,
right?
That's some of the coolest, most awesome sessions. And if you're constantly looking at your watch and the time and the pace or whatever, it's like it takes all of the fun out of the session, out of the training. Yeah.
To me, that's akin to the people that go on vacation and they're at some fantastic national park and they're just videotaping the whole thing.
Time.
It's like, wow, you really didn't experience it, did you?
Yeah, you did through the camera. Absolutely. Absolutely. The people who are also slave to the memories, to their phone, to the social. Yeah. Exactly.
So,
what did you want to say about mile training?
Oh, okay, because Kyle is so fun. You know, Kyle from At the Track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, he's great because everything that he can use to get faster, he's going to use. He'll go with the super shoes and this and that.
Yes.
And he actually asked me about sodium bicarbonate, which I did a pilot study on when I was in grad school.
Okay.
And was it a failed pilot study? It depends on if you like vomit or not. We had that's the issue with sodium bicarbonate. Okay, and the whole argument for like what is this supposed to do is, in lay terms, it's hydrogen ion buffering. Basically, you're trying to artificially inflate the pH level of your blood. Our blood is slightly alkaline anyway. So what you're trying to do is get the pH level up a little more. And then when you're running hard enough to create lactic acid, and it's really the hydrogen ions, not the acid itself, but the hydrogen ions, okay, what you're trying to do when you take the sodium bicarbonate is create a gradient, a pH gradient, so the hydrogen ions exit the muscle and are absorbed in the bloodstream.
It clears faster.
So basically,
that big, that lactic feeling, that heavy oh my gosh, I'm out of breath. Everything feels like it's filling with blood. It feels heavy. That lactate buildup, it's supposed to essentially help clear it faster so that you don't have that as intensely.
Right, because more acidic muscle tissue is not going to be able to contract as fast. That's really what it amounts to. So, does sodium bicarbonate work? Sort of. Well, definitely if it's applied the right way. Like it has to be taken typically an hour or so before the exercise bout.
Okay.
It's transitory. Your blood pH does not stay elevated forever because your body's going to try to adapt to what you just did if you took the bicarbonate.
Yep.
So why aren't we all bicarbonate loading? Because it makes most people throw up if you take the amount that's required to get your blood pH to change, which is...
Is it just causes GI issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and it's it turns out the studies that did show improvement...
I will not be trying this.
The amount you need is... It's a prescribed amount. It's 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
It means for a lot of people, you're somewhere around 3/4 of an ounce of sodium bicarbonate, which is basically baking soda. So just picture if you dipped a teaspoon into some baking soda, and then you just put it in a glass, stirred it around, and you drank it. Well, here's the thing is, you're getting probably twice your RDA of sodium anyway. So just picture if you just drank a whole bunch of salt water. That's what it tastes like, and that's what it feels like, is if you had just ingested a whole bunch of salt water. Now, some people with iron guts could handle it. I had 10 people in my pilot study. 7 of them threw up. 2 of them couldn't even finish the thing. One person was like, bring me more, you know. And so what it's turned out is that, and Kyle inspired me to do some look at the research on this. So some smart companies went ahead and found a way to encapsulate the sodium bicarbonate. They put it like in these enteric capsules, you know, much like you take any sort of prescription drugs that are coated so they're better for your stomach. Okay, and those have shown to work just as well as just the regular baking soda with less side effects. Now, the disadvantage is baking soda. You know, you pay $1 for a box of it or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
These capsules are like $10 each.
Yeah.
So, having said that, I'd say this stuff can definitely work, especially if you're in the mile. Like, the mile is a perfect event for taking sodium bicarbonate because you're going to be in lactic acidosis, you know, during the race. At some point, 2 laps in, you know, you're past that threshold. So, to me, if I'm like, I want to see if I can knock, you know, 5 more seconds off my mile. Am I going to spend $10 to do that one time?
Yeah.
Heck yes, absolutely. So
yes.
Now, having said that, just like some of these other things we talk about, you would never want to do that, you know, on race day as the only time you've done it. That's a blanket, you know, recommendation. Yeah. You never want to try this, you know, when it's the day that matters the most.
For the mile, I'm getting a little bit away from supplements now.
That's
because
fine.
Selfishly, I want to talk about the mile with you.
Let's do it. So there's a few other people that want to know about the mile.
Yes. So. When it comes to mile training, we've been doing a lot of torturous, grueling workouts, and my brain is like racked with like, what exactly is the method behind this man's madness?
Okay.
And mostly because I'm hitting paces, right, that are faster actually a little bit than the mile goal pace that I have. But we have rest in between, and they're still hard to meet. And I'm wondering, how in the heck am I going to string this together into a mile on the day that I'm supposed to string this together? Because we've been doing things like, for those that don't know, 200-meter repeats with, 45 seconds rest. We've been going into 300-meter repeats with a minute 15-ish, or we've been doing timed intervals of run to rest ratios. Right. That should put you at about 300 meters. Then we've been doing 400-meter blocks, where we do 4 rounds of that, take a long break, do another 4 rounds of that with pretty minimal rest. And now we're at 600s, 5 of them with pretty decent rest in between. And I'm dying.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking, man, 600 meters and I'm dying and I get 3 minutes of rest.
Okay.
What the hell?
A few things. Okay. First off, you're asking what the method is. It's not just because I'm a sadist. That's only a small portion of it. Less than 80%.
Yes.
So here's the thing. First off, almost everybody is doing those repeats at a little bit faster than their mile pace. Some are kind of biting off more than they can chew, and they can't. And maybe their goal pace or their goal mile is probably something they probably aren't going to achieve.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are hitting a little bit faster, okay, well, that's part of it. On race day, you're not going to be running quite as fast as these repeats go. The other thing is, if you notice, the volume is pretty close to 2 miles that I give you.
Yep.
Now, you're training for a mile. So what happens is that when you're in the second half of that workout, your body is experiencing more like what you're going to be feeling when you're going 4 laps straight all the way through.
Yeah.
Because I gave you. If I only gave if I said, okay, you're just training for the mile, so you're just getting a mile's worth of work.
Right.
By the time you finish the workout, because I gave you breaks during the workout, you're not really exposed to a stress that is going to be comparable to what you're going to feel in the mile race.
Yeah.
But because I'm giving you 2 miles of volume, if we look at like the repeats that matter, like those 600s, okay, the first 2, they're not a waste of time, but I'm basically fatiguing you on the first few, so when you get into the last few, that's really what it feels like. And then here's the other thing. This is a progression.
They're horrible, by the way.
We have a while before we get to it, but we're going to do the 600s again.
Yep.
Thursday.
Yep. Tomorrow.
I'm going to try to give you a little bit less rest. Okay. So we'll see what happens. But it's tough. If I was training just you, or just when I was training just Kyle, we did kind of that workout, but I super tailored it to him, and I would say, you're going to do a 600. I'm going to give you not enough recovery. You're going to try another 600. And I would put a cone every 100 meters. And as soon as he fell off pace, I'd say, stop. And then I'd say, okay, I'm going to give you a fairly short rest, and you're going to try another one. So he covered 3,000 meters total. We kept track.
Right.
But he might do like a 600, maybe another 600, a 500, a 400, a 300,
right.
200, because
so rest is the same, but we're seeing how far he can go to hit pace.
Yeah, and the job is like, you told me you want to run a mile in this time, so I have to have you run at that pace.
Yep.
And then by the end of it would be cool because I'd write down what he did, and you'd see early on it would be, it looked like a cut down. It'd be like, 600, then by the end he's like barely getting through a 200.
Yeah.
And then we'd do the very same thing in terms of total volume, 3,000 meters, but by the end he's like, I would do like 4 600s in a row, and then maybe cut it down to a 500 and a 4. Right. So he knew he was improving his anaerobic system. Really, is what it was.
Right.
So that's the other thing. Also on race day, and it's different from one person to the next. Race day, you're going to have adrenaline flowing. You're going to have.
You'll have a little bit of a taper. You won't be on tired legs.
All this other stuff. Yeah. But the other thing too is there's enough time between now and then. We're going to be doing 800 meter repeats. It's like the toughest. The toughest one is like 3 to 4 800s, and it's basically a mile simulation. We'll be doing a workout where
That's disgusting.
We'll be doing a 1200.
No.
Well, you're racing the mile.
I know, okay. Gary. I don't want to think about it though.
Okay. Well,
you show up to train and you're like.
We should do the thing like they do in Men in Black. Okay, forget.
Yeah. Erase my memory, please.
Erase your memory. So, but we'll do something like a 1200 and then a whole bunch of 100s afterwards. Because 1,200 meters into the mile race
is horrible.
You're like, oh man, I'm dead. My legs are dead. So I'll give you a little break, and then you're just going to stand on the track and just go 100s back and forth. You're going to simulate trying to sprint, while you're fatigued. So, but what are we achieving here? Just real quickly in terms of physiology, I have to get you to generate enzymes that are associated with clearing lactate. And I can only have you do that if I'm having you run fast enough that you're past that threshold.
Yep.
If I never have you do that, then the first time you'll encounter that stress is on the day of the mile, and no matter how much willpower you have, you're not going to do it. But here, there's 3 different enzymes that have to do with with anaerobic metabolism, and we're working on those. We don't have to worry. I don't have to juggle too much with the hard aerobic part because you guys do the Tuesday workouts. So we're taking care of your basic aerobic fitness. If, like everybody that shows up on Thursday is, most of you are there on Tuesday.
Yep.
Almost everyone. So if that were not the case, I would have to add more variety to the workout.
For me, again, we're getting selfish here. If my 600s, let's say right now, we're sitting at, if I'm averaging a 155.
Okay.
For 600s. But I'm cooking and I'm tired.
Yeah.
Where, based on my runs, you've been out there with me, where would you predict my mile to kind of sit at? Because I really, really want to get a sub 5:15.
I was going to say, your under over is about a 5:15 right now. Well, there you go. So take that sodium bicarbonate, put on your super shoes. Crank the caffeine.
Oh, my God.
If we get enough supplements, you can break a 4-minute mile.
I know. If we throw enough stuff at me on the day of the race, I will be good.
Exactly.
Kyle has got nothing on me, bruh.
But I think you'll be right in there. So, for we haven't really talked about pacing yet, but it's pretty straightforward on the pacing. You know, all the fastest times in the 1500 or the mile are set with very even pacing that is slightly slower than your goal, and then sprint the last lap.
Okay.
Yep.
So even for the first three. For the first 3 laps.
Ideally, because
I always hear start not slow, but start conservative, I would say, or smart, strategic. Make 2 a little bit faster, match it with 3, and then 4 is just go.
Okay, effort-wise, yes, it should be that for effort. If
but for
speed,
for
effort, for time, what'll happen? Yeah, if that's how your effort
2 will
goes,
feel faster.
Yeah,
it might not be.
if you go steady, a little harder, then the harder you can go, you're probably gonna have even laps all the way across.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. That because you're accumulating lactate.
Right.
So, but the reason most of the world records are set with the first 3 laps not at world record pace and then they sprint is because if you go a little over threshold, it doesn't matter how much willpower you have. Biochemistry wins. Okay, you're not gonna be able to contract as quickly. Either your frequency or your stride length are gonna fall off, and then you might regroup and sprint a little bit. But if you're slightly behind on your first 3 laps, and then you're like, let's rip it, you can always make up for it for 1 lap. You can't do that for more than a lap.
Yes.
But you can run a fast last lap.
Yep.
So that's how I'm trying to advise folks set it up. But in training, like those who are really struggling to hit and can't hit their goal pace right now for the 600s. We'll see on Thursday how many people can do it. But by now, at this point in the training, on like 2 minute and with that walk 100 meters and then jog 100 meters into it with that amount of recovery. Let's put it this way: if you backed off, okay, let's do the math. What is it to run a 5:15 for a 600? I know 152 is 5 flat.
Yeah.
2 minutes flat is a 5:20. So we're probably looking at something like a 157, 158.
That's very sustainable.
Let's say about
for
158. Me. So picture this.
157, 158 is very doable for me.
So picture this. If you ran, and this is a way if I was just training you, we could tweak the workout.
Right.
If you said, I want to run that 115, and we do the math, and I think it's going to be about a 158, we go, okay, you're going to run 158s. Don't run slower. Don't run faster. We're going to give you the least amount of recovery possible. You could probably run 158s with 100-meter recovery instead of 200 meters.
I understand.
Probably so. See what I mean? And then, that's more like your mile.
Right.
Okay. But running a little bit faster also sets you up. The advantage of doing that is, remember I said, in the perfect race, you're going to run your first 3 laps a tiny bit slower and then sprint. Well, you won't be unused to running faster than race pace if you're running your 600s in 153, 154, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a fair amount of science, but some art in there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The mile makes my stomach hurt, man.
It's pretty tough. And it's so funny. The kids, when I was teaching PE at Maclay School, the mile was like, it's so long.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys don't even know.
You guys don't have any idea.
It's like I'll do 3 miles as a warm up before my race, and they'll look at me like,
yeah,
that's all distance runners do that.
Yeah.
But it's just in their minds, anything that's more than a lap.
Oh, it's
around
an
the
endurance
track
event. I mean, when I was in high school running 4s and 8s, I mean, an 800 to me was like, you could have asked me to kill my mom.
Yeah.
Like trying to ask me to run the 800.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, how dare you? This is the longest race ever.
The highest levels of lactate recorded at international events were in the final of the 800 meters.
It's the worst.
It is tough because
to me, it's the worst feeling event.
Because you're still pacing yourself on the mile. The 800, you're barely pacing yourself. And in these world-class events, the 800, the second lap is actually slower than the first lap, which is not like that in all the other distance races.
Isn't that the only place where they've done world record and the second lap was slower?
Yes.
They positive split it.
Yeah, positive split. Because they're just hammering right from the outset. So.
Yeah, the 800 is to me, it's like the longest sprint of your life.
Pretty much.
That's horrible.
Yep. So.
Did you run the 800? Ever?
In the 4x8, every once in a while.
I did the 4x8 too. Yeah. It didn't matter that we were a part of a team. It was it was horrific.
It was tough. It was my favorite event to coach at McClay. We had the most titles in the 4x8 because I was like, nobody else is brave enough to do this, so we're all going to do it.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
So everybody on the team had to run the 800.
There you go. 4x4 to me was my favorite.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
4x4 was fun, even more than the 400, because the 4x4 it's like everyone's done.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone loves
End
watching.
Of the race, everyone's screaming. And
yes, those were the best. And after, for me, I would get done, and you'd be dying. But then the boys are going, and I would summon energy from energy from somewhere, and I'm screaming at them. I mean, it is one of the coolest.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad they're doing these co-ed relays at the Olympics now. The co-ed 4x4.
What?
Yeah, they have They started at the last Olympics. They have co-ed 4x4 at the World Championships and the Olympics.
Epic.
It is so cool.
Do you have to match it like 2 guys, 2 girls?
Some of the events they say they let you choose, but usually they have you matched up. So
even.
Yeah. They alternate. Oh, one year they did men, women, and the next year it's women, men.
That's
so really fun.
So cool.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, I will let you go, Gary. We talked about a lot of stuff. I so appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Oh, gosh, it's total fun.
I know. I was talking to Stephanie about it earlier, and she's like, you're going to have him on for a series. And I was like, I probably am going to, because we're going to start talking, and then we could just roll forever. Yeah,
I have, if we cover everything we ever want to cover at some point, then I can start telling you running stories.
Yes.
So, but they're going to be so off tangent, from what we're doing.
Let's do it. That means you definitely have to come on, because we have to get the running stories from you.
My teaser is one I actually wrote about when I was in Southern California, and I was off doing a long run, and I ran up on this big ridge, and I kind of hopped a fence because I wanted to run down this trail, and I ended up in this little hamlet, and it just looked weird. It was early on a Sunday morning. And then I go out and I see there's some guy working on his car, and all he's wearing is tool belt and nothing else. Someone else, this woman goes out to pick up the newspaper, and she's naked, and I've got my shorts on. I'm like, holy shite, I'm in a nudist colony. And so I'm like, I got to blend in. So I took off my shorts, and this kid ran out and goes, look at the cottontail.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So I wrote about it. I said that was the one time I was caught with my pants up. So
that was the one time I was caught with my pants up. That is the best. And on that note, guys, we will see you next week. Thank you so much, Gary, for coming on.
It was fun, Abigail. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.